Going to be engaged. Teachers are going to be engaged in this work throughout the remainder of the school year. The other component of this is we're looking to hire 2 additional part-time deans to help reduce chronic absenteeism at Hill House, as well as to support students in getting to class. In addition to some other instructional resources like Newsella, which offers teachers a multi-leveled text so students can access not only grade level standards, but text at their level in order to support their learning. And we're also going to take a look at doing some additional branding within the building around their SMART acronym and support students who are attending school and making headway moving towards credit attainment and graduation.
All right, thank you. Any comments or questions related to this? I had none either, so thank you. And we'll talk about the next one, which is ARPA Priority School Districts and Faith Acts Grant. Ms. Bonanno? Or is there somebody else that can speak on this one?
Ms. Bonanno is not on. I do know as she was creating this grant, I can give a general overview, Mr. Wilcox.
Thank you very much.
So this grant was awarded. Pretty much what we're going to be doing with this particular grant is looking at how we're supporting the SEL ambassadors, providing them their folks who are in the buildings enough to be able to build out some of our programming as it relates to social emotional learning support. It also is going to give us an opportunity to look at providing some more support in our after school programming. And then lastly, to support our Montessori program.
Okay, thank you. Any comments or questions related to this? I had none either. So let's go ahead and talk about number 3, which is a school improvement grant for Truth. Is Mr. Foreman or someone available?
I'm right here. Good afternoon.
Hello.
How are you? So with our grant, so what we're focusing on with this grant is we need to replace our Chromebooks. A lot of them have come to the end of their life since COVID. So we need to replace those. We're putting in additional funding to get additional supplies and materials for our students. And we're also going to use money to do field expositions per grade level. So each grade level is going to be allotted a certain amount of money, and we're going to send them out to do different field experiences around the community and throughout the state.
All right, thank you. Comments or questions? I had none on this one either, so thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
We'll jump into the agreements, and first one sounds like a fun one with Trident Machine Tools. Mr. McCain.
Good evening. So this is the machines that are going to be the main usage of our manufacturing program. These are the big lathes, the big mills. It also includes desktop mills. So each school across in Hill House will receive 6 desktop mills, which will be able to support more kids working and making parts. 2 simulators that go with the The bigger mills, they have different heads, so they can make 4-axis instead of 3-axis, which is a vital skill in manufacturing they need to learn to be able to do. It also includes 2 big lathes that are going to be put in, so a different type of machining, but still used essentially all the time. So this will cover the costs of the big machines. They have 2-year warranties on them, and I think they're great machines.
All right. Thank you. Comments or questions? Okay, I had none on these either. Does sound interesting, and yeah, fun. Progress on the manufacturing program, the equipment coming in. And this is, let's see here. The one question I had was, so this is not a multi-year, it just is bridging fiscal years.
Yeah.
And the second one was, these were going to be able to be in use in the fall. Is that when the installation was going to happen? I'm trying to.
That's the plan. Yeah, these machines are so big, they have to be stored with mire, and they'll rig them in because they're so heavy. They have to be put in place just right. So that'll happen most likely in August before school starts.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you very much. Let's move on to the next one then, which is an amendment to the agreement with Southern Connecticut State University. So is Ms. Natalino available?
Yes, hello, I'm here. Good
Hi.
afternoon, everyone. So if you remember back in the early fall, I shared with you the HCAP agreement, the Health Career Academy pathway at Hill House. Students in that pathway were taking 2 college courses with Southern. This amendment is just to add on a 3rd course for the spring semester. And we decided to make the psychology course a full year course so that students had more time to access the coursework because it is very rigorous. So we're basically adding on to the work that was done in the fall for the spring semester for dual enrollment.
Okay, thank you. Comments or questions? Okay, I had none either. So this sounds good. Expanding good programs is a good thing. So we'll move on to number 3, which is a non-financial data sharing agreement with Yale University. Mr. Wen?
Yeah, so this is an agreement to allow students access to the Yale Pathways Science and Pathways to Arts and Humanities program at Yale University. And basically, I didn't include the number of students total, but there's 400 new students, but in total, there's 200 or 2,000 students per year. And about 900 are in college, and it also strengthens the STEM program as well. I have Ms. Merson here to explain more about the program if you would like to have any questions about it.
Okay. Happy to hear from Ms. Merson anytime. So if there's anything else you'd like to add, or I can ask for if there's questions. And you seem to be muted. Still muted.
Well, I can also add, though, that students can choose over 150 events each year. It's a really strong program. We've had a strong
I'm so
partnership with them since 2011. So go ahead, Claudia.
I'm sorry, I'm with you now. Yeah. Right. So this is as John said, this is a renewal of an agreement that we began in 2011, and it supports the array of outreach programs that are at Yale University. So originally we had like hundreds of programs, but what we always called it 1,000 flowers and no garden. So with this memorandum of understanding, we're able to take kids from first entry into the program, which can be as young as the 6th grade, and work with them through college completion. when we originally were talking about it, as those of you who are old like me remember, we called it No Child Left Unknown, because no one person at Yale will work with a particular student necessarily for 10 years, but the university as a whole will. And this data sharing agreement enables us, we do a couple things. We track every single thing that the kid goes to and what people at Yale are involved in that. So when we get opportunities for kids, we're able to go into our database, and if my colleague Maria Parente doesn't know this student, or her colleague Rick Krause, we open our database and we can see what this kid was doing since 2016 and call somebody up at the university and say, hey, we have an opportunity. Do you think this child would be good? So the data that you give us is outlined in the agreement. We have parental permissions for all of these. I'm saying this because I think this is the first time we've been before this committee. I think we used to go before curriculum and instruction. But the database has been secured according to specs from both you people, the state, and Yale University. And let me not rat on and see what kind of questions you have.
All right, thank you very much. Are there comments or questions? Dr. Yarbrough.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much for sharing about the program and also the data. Are the data shared back with the district in ways that we can keep an update? Okay.
That's part of the agreement, but in all honesty, nobody's ever asked us for it, but we have it for you at the push of a button. And, you know, it's possible with your new data system. I'm not familiar with it yet. You know, we have there are some students that spend like 1,375 hours in Yale programs. And we could give you, like, your students, the hours they spend and what they did. I mean, what we have used this principally for is working smarter and being able to see when a student is interested in something and offer them increasingly deepening experiences in that area over time. And we're just as happy if they go to something and they say, oh my God, I hate it. I never want to be this, you know, because it's all about, when you're little, just discernment. Like, I like this, I don't like that. So it's just commonsensical. It's not brilliant, but it works.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. I do think that's, I mean, I recommend that the district do take a look at the data and just see how it could be useful for our programs as well. And I'm fine with this. I mean, my children were involved in some of these programs when they were in school, in New Haven schools, and think that this is a great program. The data sharing agreement that's here does seem to cover all the things that it needs to, in terms of protecting that data, not sharing the data elsewhere, etc. And it's also with parental permission, and it's also data that Yale could be collecting anyways, because people sign up for these programs and are known entities. So this just makes sure that the data is clean and useful for both parties, at least potentially useful for us if we look at it. So I think it's great. So thank you. Thank you, Ms. Merson, for your comments as well. Is there anything else on this item? All right. Thank you also, Mr. Wen. And we'll move on to number 4, which is an agreement with Boundless Literacy. So Ms. Toussaint.
Hi, good evening, everyone. This is for 5 tutors for Boundless Literacy, 4 to be paid out of ARP ESSER, 3 and 1 out of Wexler Grant SIG grant. And the 4 tutors will work in the 4 turnaround schools. The 5 tutors, excuse me, will work in the 4 turnaround schools, providing direct instruction to our students.
All right, thank you. Are there comments or questions? I'll just clarify that this is one we saw last FNO meeting, but it was also one the administration pulled from the full board so that some of the language could be clarified in the descriptions of exactly what's happening in terms of these being tutors, not teachers, etc. So that's, if it looks familiar, it's because it is. It's clarifications on that were added to the descriptions. So now, are there any comments or questions? Dr. Yarbrough.
Yes, I'm just looking. I think I answered my question, which was that this is full-time tutoring. So does that mean they are in the building working with students for a full workday?
They'll be there for approximately 6 hours.
Okay. And since this is for well, 6 months. Okay, so this is a full school year?
January until June.
January till June. Okay. Are you thinking and do you expect that this agreement or a similar agreement will come before us for next academic year and be for a full academic year?
Well, I think we'll have to assess the data at that time and see if it's something that the principals, literacy coaches, and the teachers would want before we make any determination.
Okay, thank you. I support the program. I'm just thinking about equity of pay between the tutors and our teachers, our faculty. And it looks like for the 6 months, it's $35,000 per tutor that they would receive. So I'm thinking, for the full school year, what it would be if they were to come back or what the ask would be. But this agreement is, well, I guess it is put forward by our school, so by the district. So, okay, no other questions, Mr. Wilcox. And thank you very much for answering my questions.
Of course.
All right.
Thank you.
And I think my questions were answered between their conversation today and then also with our discussion from last meeting. So thank you very much. And so we'll move on to the next one, which is an agreement with ACES. Is Joseph Lumpkin, or I don't know who's here. It could be Mr. Tabaris.
Yes, good
Oh, there you
afternoon. I am here.
Hello.
This is part of the ongoing work that we have been, can you hear me? Yes, okay. That we've been doing with ACES, helping us to work through our data collection, data analysis of the learner engagement attendance program. This allows for ACES to provide us with the expertise to dig into multiple sets of qualitative data and to help us to make sense of this data through coding and themes and that sort of thing, as well as to support us in the submission of this information to CSDE, which funds our learner engagement attendance program, also known as the other LEAP in New Haven.
Okay, thank you. Are there comments or questions related to this? Okay, I had none on this item either. So we'll go ahead and go on to the next one, which is number 6, is an agreement with ALK Mindfulness.
Okay, so as we roll out our Saturday Academy, we are adding a component that is a SEL component that incorporates hands-on activities, but also supports students in a manner that involves them with understanding components of SCL. I am digging through for that one right now. And just bear with me. I'm not sure if it's in my file. All right, here we go. And so it's somewhat similar to the Castle framework. They work with students on motivation and responsible decision making. What I like about what they do is they actually bring activities, arts and hands-on activities to the student learning, so that through conversation, through sports, through dance, through journaling, they are able to have students to understand some of the basic concepts around, as I mentioned before, social and emotional competency, specifically decision-making, self-awareness, and those elements.
Okay, thank you. Comments or questions? No? Go
I have
for
a-
it, Doc.
I have a comment and a question. Well, the comment is I support this program and the other ones that are coming forward. And I just had a general question in terms of how we as a district think about the collection of programs and how it relates to our budget mitigation. Do we have a target for either the number of students we're looking to serve, or I guess my question is like, how do you decide as a team, as a staff, whether to accept a new program or to expand an existing program? And how do we connect that with our budgeting targets? Because I know at the end of the year, or not just at the end of the year, but along the way, we participate in budget mitigation efforts. Like, how do we think about what investment we're able to make and would like to make?
So first and foremost, we are very cognizant of the need for budget mitigation, particularly in light of much of this funding coming through the ESSA program, which we know will sunset in the coming months. The programs are based on our priorities that we have outlined within our district strategic plan. And so we organize specifically around that. We prioritize our poorest schools, our Title I schools, our students who have the highest needs, where we see students who have high rates of free and reduced lunch, students who are our English language learning students, as well as students who are high needs, including special education needs. So we focus it on, does this fit into our strategic plan? B, does it meet the students who are the neediest? Is it connected to those students? And then, do we have the funds? Do we have the funds to make this happen? And that's where we engage in negotiations, deep conversations with our partners, making sure that they have the capacity, they have a background of doing this work, and that we believe that this work will make a difference in the lives and the outcomes for students. And of course, as you know, all of the partners that come through our office must go through a process of a review that involves something similar to an RFQ, an RFP process, where we intensively analyze their capacity, their ability, their background, their insurance, their ability to cover risks, as well as I said, the ability to perform.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
And also, like, as it pertains to this particular contractor or service provider, I appreciate the additional effort and creativity that a particular vendor may bring in to bring in SEL in a way that might uniquely engage our students and continue to develop that capacity. So thank you for bringing this and other service providers forward.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. let's go on to the next one, which is an amendment. Number 7 is an amendment with the agreement of Little Scientists.
Christian?
Good evening, everyone. So the amendment with Little Scientists is to support other sites, the current initiative that they have over at the 2 sites that we currently had agreed upon, and they will be servicing 4 more sites, Nathan Hale, Jepson, East Rock, and John Martinez during after school hours.
Okay, thank you. Comments or questions? I had none on this one either. Let's go on to number 8, which is an amendment to the agreement with Arte.
The agreement with Arte is to support after-school programming efforts at 2 more sites, which are also Jepson and Clinton Avenue, and also an after-school program to support McKinney-Vento families at the Atwater Senior Center. And another initiative for the McKinney-Vento families is the Saturday Academy sessions held at the Atwater Senior Center and the college readiness program for those juniors and seniors who are ready to transition into to further their education, and just provide them the tools and the resources needed to actually start that process and hopefully get accepted into college or a university.
All right, thank you. Are there comments or questions on this item? Dr. Yarbrough.
Yes, just thank you for continuing to think about and serve our students who are part of the McKinney-Vento family of services. That's all.
Thank you.
I'll ask my standard question. What's our number up to for?
As of today, just over 600 students. And as you know, Mr. Wilcox, last year, at the end of the school year, we had just over 700 students. So as we reported previously, we are anticipating a substantial increase in the number of students who are identified as McKinney-Vento.
And it certainly seems like the numbers are matching up with the projections that your office has had in this. So
correct.
An unfortunate growth area. All right.
Indeed.
Thank you very much. So let's go on to the next item and talk about the agreement with Upon This Rock Ministries.
So the agreement with Upon This Rock is intentional to actually serve our students during those half days and those full days off from school, and also during this Saturday on the weekends when there's no schools in session. So whenever there's half days, we ask the contractor if they can open their doors to students within the district who need an extra support, or the families need extra support. So the students are able to go there until the end of the day when families are done working, and they get picked up through that. Full day program is whenever there's an off day from school, or during, and also to support our Spring Fun Club as. And then during this time, they'll be doing a lot of homework help, tutoring, health and wellness education, proactive hands-on learning throughout these sessions.
All right. Any comments or questions related to this? Dr. Yarbrough.
Yes, thank you. Wondering about the increase, the $150 increase for the weekly programming and the $300 increase in the full day programming, what the increase are due to. And also just a comment that I appreciate here and in the other items, the data in terms of the evaluation and what the programs are doing well and how the site visits have gone. And when there's one for the after school program, I think the data here was for the summertime. Also curious to see how the after school is going when you do that. So thank you.
Of course, so we're definitely going to take the initiative to evaluate all of our programs summer after school. So we're definitely on board with that. And in regards to the pay increase, the provider actually buys a lot of the materials ranging from snacks, all the art supplies, and also they incorporated a new mentoring component during these sessions. So that's also to support all the items and supplies needed to actually engage the young students who are going to be participating in the mentoring group.
Okay, thank you. And is this on site in the New Haven schools, or is this at their location?
This is at their location.
Okay, thank you.
No worries.
The only thing I have to add is I appreciate having the, you know, the information that's in here, the, I don't know, the ratings, you know, the observation data about how the program's going, and then also the statement that clarifies that this is, you know, the statement you all have started to use with faith-based organizations about the secular nature of the services. And so I think that's great. And thank you for having that in place.
Thank you, Mr. Wilcox.
All right, Dr. Yarbrough.
Yes, I just had one other question, which I think you've probably answered before. Do we pay one per student? So do we look at the attendance per the session and then reimburse for that session, or do we pay by the session?
What we usually do is we say it's up to X amount of students, because attendance could vary. So if they say they're able to take on 35 kids but only 34 come, we're not going to penalize them for one student not showing up, because we know things happen. Families have situations that occur, or the student might just be absent on that specific day. So we don't want to hold the contractor liable for that, and we know that things happen and attendance will fluctuate.
Okay, and if they what is our knowledge of, you know, let's say it's up to 35 students, are they consistently in the 30s, or would they be consistently in the 20s? Like, are we keeping track of that piece?
Of course. So
Yes.
every month I actually review part of their invoicing. They have to attach their attendance, and I actually look through all that, and that's where I have conversations and say, oh, this contractor isn't meeting their requirement. What can we do to actually increase these numbers? Should we send out a parent link to actually reach out to the more families and say we have this program and available? So we always evaluate everything before we actually submit payment, and then we have conversations with the contractor to ensure that we're meeting the requirements of the contract.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
And I guess as an extension to that, if it was that you know, if it was just going to be there was just going to be a smaller number of students, would you all pursue an adjustment so that it would be a program of instead of up to 35 students, up to 20 students, and adjust the pricing? Like if the numbers were consistently low, would you consider either changing the agreement, canceling it, or reducing the number of students allowed
Yes.
in the?
Yes, we will
Okay.
have that conversation with the provider to work on mitigating, first increasing, because we want to service the students first and foremost. And then we will also, or we'll work with the provider on revisiting the contract. So if we agreed on 30 and it turns out that the provider is servicing less than that number on a consistent basis, we will certainly come back, and we have come back to you and say we are revising down because the contractor was not able to meet the initial agreement.
Okay. Thank you. Any other comments or questions? All right, then we'll go on to number 10, which is an amendment with the agreement with Gateway. Ms. Diaz-Valencia.
Hello, good evening, everyone. So this is additional enrollment funds that were added by the OEC to the school readiness sub-grantees and the overall grant in general. So this is for 28,000 additional funds based on the enrollment numbers for school readiness at the Gateway Community College site.
All right, thank you. Comments or questions? I had none on this one either. So we'll move on into the contracts. The first one is a award of a contract with Utility Communications. And we had an email from Mr. Lamb that he was not going to be available. Is somebody else available to speak on this?
Yeah, I'll take it for him.
Thank you.
This is our on-call repair and maintenance services for our security systems. This program allows us access control, and it's just here as a priority for repetitive features.
All right, thank you. Comments or questions? All right, let's talk about then the second one, which is Retech LLC water contract.
So this is for the replacement of the ADA front decks at Sound School. The decks at Anderson, Thompson, and McNeil are in immediate need of replacement. The boards are peeling. The decks are actually separating from the schools. So we are working with the architect. We actually designed new decking material. We're going to be using bamboo materials and steel material, which is more marine grade materials for the surroundings.
All right, thank you. Comments or questions? I had none on this one either. So we'll move into purchase orders. The first one is sports construction for bleachers at Fairhaven. Mr. Finelli?
So the bleachers at Fairhaven, again, they're in disrepair. This is a major safety issue. The veneer on the main decking, as you will, is peeling, causing tripping hazards. Some of the rails are missing and other rails are damaged. We were able to work with a vendor to acquire bleachers rather quickly. Normally it would take about 24 weeks for these to be made to come in. They did have a set of bleachers for us that are available in 6 weeks. So we were able to go with that design, which fits perfectly in the school. The seats and side curtains are going to be mocked up to fit the school colors and the school logo. That's it.
Thank you. Comments or questions? I had none either. So let's see, that was the bleachers. Next is Red Thread Spaces. Mr. Camarco?
Yes, thank you. So this is a dance flooring. It's actually a mat that's ability to roll it up and put it back down. It's used in our dance studios, the two at Co-op, and the lifespan is 6 to 10 years, depending on usage. Ours is about 16 years old, and we use it nonstop. So it needs desperately to be replaced.
So you're saying for the record that the dance party at Co-op just doesn't stop?
Listen, we have our dance show. Our winter dance show is tomorrow night. So get your tickets now, 6:30 in our main stage. Come out and see it. But yes, the dance party never stops at Co-op, Mr. Wilcox.
All right, thank you for that clarification. Any comments or questions related to this?
Somebody will have to take a 60-second and make a reel of this and share it on social media to boost up those ticket prices.
Yeah.
Ticket sales, rather.
We fit 350 people in the theater. We'd like to see it packed.
Excellent. Excellent.
So if you could send me an email with that information, I'll see what I can do in terms of being there.
Sounds great.
Thank you, sir. I had no questions related to this. Did you, Dr. Yorber? Okay.
No, not for me.
Thank you. Seems like we got good use out of the last one. So, okay. Last purchase order is with Tucker Mechanical. Mr. Alain?
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Mr. Wilcox. This is going to be for an emergency procurement of a heat exchanger for Fame School. Inside the documents, I attached a memo that explained that we used a non-competitive negotiation procurement process and making sure that we got approval from the appropriate parties to do so. This is for $33,775 for a heat exchanger that is needed for Fame School. Tucker Mechanical, who is our main HVAC vendor that does our repairs, will be doing this repair and exchanging that heat exchanger.
Okay, and so to clarify, this is a group that we use for other services. This is an emergency replacement, and we do indeed have in place, part of our policy is that this can happen for non-competitive negotiations. So,
yes, sir.
Okay, comments or questions related to this? All right, I think you've covered it, and
I do have one.
at it, you have a cover memo that explains it. You're citing the policy, and you're also pointing out that this is a group that has a state contract, and it's a group we've used before. So this is our current vendor for these things. So,
yes, sir.
Dr. Yarbrough?
Yes, just appreciation for working and getting this repaired before the winter comes, and taking avenues available to us to execute it. So thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Dr. Alvaro.
All right, thank you. I guess we've been blessed with some slightly warmer temperatures too, so hopefully we can get this done quickly. And we'll just move right into the change order, which is also with you with change order for Connecticut Controls.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Wilcox. This is going to be a change order request for 20% of the on-call contract value for Connecticut Controls, who handles all the controls, repairs, and adjustments for our HVAC systems throughout the district. The contract value initially is $200,000, so we're asking for a 20% change order of $40,000, making the total amount now for $240,000. Reason being that we have reached the 50% spending mark for this particular contract due to all of the HVAC services that were needed at the end of the summer and the beginning of now the heating season. So with that increase, with spending has gone beyond or about 50% before we got halfway through the year, and requesting the 20% increase for change order in order to take us through the rest of the fiscal year for this school year.
All right, thank you. Comments or questions? I have none either. I just appreciate you guys planning ahead and having that rule in place. And when you hit a threshold, you take the action to make the adjustments with the change order process. So appreciate that.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right. That looks like it is all of the action items listed. So I'm going to go ahead and make the motion, and that is I move that we send to the full board with a recommendation to approve these 3 abstracts, these 10 agreements, these 2 contracts, these 3 purchase orders, and 1 change order.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll go ahead and vote. Dr. Yarbrough?
Yes.
And I'm a yes, and I don't see that President Rivera is on the call, so the motion passes. And that moves on. So then we'll move on ourselves in our discussion items. The first one is kind of information only, which is we've been supplied the F&O 2024 meeting dates. And so just note those for the record. My understanding is the full board will be getting the meeting dates for all the committees and everything maybe next week in our full board, but this doesn't require any action on our part. But it is for notification. Just please note that, of course, especially at the beginning of the year, we have some meetings move from Mondays to Tuesdays due to the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. birthday or day holiday, and I think President's Day. So got a couple in the first 2 months. Any other comments or anything on those? Did I forget anything, Ms. DeMayo?
You got it all.
Okay. Also, the next item on the agenda is an F&O discussion calendar, which is our process we've been doing over the last few months, is having some things in place to plan ahead. I did send a draft of my thoughts to several of the regular attendees, and, you know, Dr. Negron, the committee members, Ms. DeMayo, Mr. Lamb, I think, Dr. Finley. So those, just to clarify, that's my opinion on these things. Some of those things are things that we typically do, such as the second meeting of the month, we'll have the financial reports on the previous month. So some of those things are on there. There's also a few policy things, and there's also 2 things I wanted to highlight. 3 things I wanted to highlight. One was, like we did at the first January meeting, I think last year, we had information presented about our after school programs and the RFQ process. So it'd be good to have a repeat of that with the new information about how things are going this year. We see these every meeting, so it's good to see them kind of like at one time, like here's all the things that are going on. So, but because that's right after the beginning of the year, wanted to make sure people knew that. A second thing is, I do think we need to have early in our budget process updating the information on our staffing guidelines report about where things are in terms of the gap, so that as we are all out there working towards working with people on the budget requests, that we have fresh numbers about the deficit and the gaps. So for instance, I was just at an Alders Education Committee meeting last week and referenced that report about the number of positions we need for counselors, restorative folks, psychologists, social workers, etc. So it is information that gets used. And so that is one of those things. And then finally, I'm requesting, because it's also something that comes up, it's a request of the student board members that we focus on restroom facilities in the school district. So my thought was maybe we could have a report about restrooms, some of the problems or issues, future plans, how this relates to the transgender student policy, which requires restroom access, not based on gender, etc. So those are three things I wanted to highlight. If anybody has any comments or questions on that, please send it to the committee, as well as Dr. Negron, and so that we can fit that in there. It's currently just my opinion, so I am looking for feedback, as well as stuff that if it's not reasonable, if we need more time, less time, if you have things that are ready to go, then we can do it earlier, but that's some of my thoughts. Any comments or questions related to this? All right, Dr. Yarbrough?
Yes, thank you. I was wondering if there's space or how we might have a strategy conversation. I think there was a conversation or a presentation on the facilities side, and I think it was specifically around the space we rent and how much it costs and what we should charge. And my question was just about how we capture what those costs actually are and where they can be reported. So part of me was thinking, if we have a number of after-school programs, summer programs that are using the buildings, should we factor that into the awards that we provide, or some kind of way just track what additional expenses that we may be incurring that we're not tracking officially?
Okay,
so that might be an offline conversation. I don't know where it would show up.
Okay, so we had, when we looked at the facilities use policy, we did look at some data, if I remember correctly. I'll have to look at meeting materials. I believe we looked at data that actually, for the first time, was breaking that down in terms of what things were actually costing us. So are you suggesting an update to that, Dr. Yarbrough?
Yes, and if we're not, an update to that, and I think what we said is that we're not tracking all the costs, or some kind of way we're not, something's not happening when we started to look at that data. And yeah, my thought was just maybe we can follow up on it.
Okay. Yeah, let's think about that and think about when would be good. It's reminding me I need to double check with governance committee, because we did have some updates to the facilities use policy. I have to see where things are connected to that.
And Dr. Negron had a hand raised.
Yeah, anybody else, Dr. Negron, or?
No, I just wanted to reiterate that, yes, we had that conversation early on. And I agree, there could be additional thinking on what else could be added to what we collect now that we could capture, right? When we are having these programmings, almost like what is the in-kind, right? Expense of the resources that we're providing in the event of some of the facility use that is going out there where no money is coming in, right? To support either who's opening the building, who's staying in the building in terms of security, custodian. So all of that could be quantified.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking about. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, and I think part of that was information that's presented to also talk about, because I think that there probably needs to be, especially because there's going to be, some changes in the policy, but also that there were some recommendations, as I recall, on the price structure, or who counts in one category versus another. So yes, okay, so I agree, this all sounds good, so we'll find a time. So please, if people are thinking about the discussion calendar, when's an appropriate time to have that? We have 2 meetings a month. We're also moving into the budget season, so but there also are some meetings that I don't have anything attached to in terms of things. So if it's something that can wait until maybe March, then I think we have some empty meetings already in terms of a discussion calendar. If it's something more pressing, then we should move it up. So yes, this is great. Please think about this. And if you have other things, and anybody else that's on the call, if there's other things you think this committee should be looking at, or reports that should be heard, or please let us know. Okay, looking at if there's nothing else on this item, hearing and seeing nothing. The next one was the FY24 budget deficit mitigation process. Trying to remember, Ms. DeMeo, what we talked about related to this. I think it was just getting an overview or an update as to where we are in terms of either if we could have the reason for this was the current budget deficit number that's listed in our monthly financial reports has been similar, and I guess it's just a question of when we'll be able to have a sense of where that number is now that we're moving into a mid-year point. This is when it starts to change in the past. So I guess I was just looking for clarification on that.
Okay, I can speak to that. The numbers are going the wrong way. I met with the team today, and we're having some other issues with our interdistrict funding now versus the raises that have gone into, with the teachers. So we're working on that now. We are ready to make some recommendations to the superintendent. As I said, we just met this afternoon, so we're going to work with the superintendent to make some recommendations on that. We're also going to start looking at, we had instituted a process last year with the hiring, and we know that, if you see a teacher, you want to grab a teacher, but what's happening is that some of the teachers are just coming in at salaries that we can't support. So we will be working with HR again to make sure that all the new hires, like if there's 5 candidates, we want to look at, the offer that they're making to the candidates. So that was what we worked on this afternoon on the budget mitigation deficit. I did report at the last F&O meeting some of the things, I think it was in the slide, some of the things that we're working on. We're still working on those items to see where we can reduce the budget wherever we can. But Friday's news was not a good picture for me. So it's like we're working on 2 folds now. So I did put a plan together to talk with the superintendent and cabinet. So I don't want to say any more about that until I've actually had a chance to share that with the superintendent.
Okay, thank you. So it sounds like in January we'll be having more information.
Yes.
Do you anticipate, or do you want to have that information as part of our second January meeting where you talk about the financial report for Or do
I
you
can
want
do,
to?
I can do it all. I would like to, some of my recommendations I would like to put in place early part of January, right after the holidays. So there are some things that I think we could do, in-house. But then there are some other larger issues which would take discussion.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it sounds like that would be the second January meeting.
Yes, I can do it all at one time.
And of course, you all already have outlined some of the things you're going to be doing. And
yes.
And okay. Well, comments or questions related to this? Okay. Dr. Yarbrough.
Yeah, just that I appreciate you and the team working on this, because I know it's my understanding is there's going to be a lot to work through. So just thank you for being proactive, and whatever opportunities we might have as a larger team to strategize and see what we can do. I'm interested.
Thank you.
All right, so we'll have a good discussion then, and this discussion would be, I'm sure, easier if one of the richest states in the country would better equitably fund their schools. They do a great job. They're getting better. We just need them to keep moving forward and being able to spend the money in the categories where it needs to be spent. I think your comments about bringing in teachers at higher salaries, as everyone can recall, I'm sure that one of the mitigation strategies was try to bring in people at lower salaries. When you have nationwide and statewide teacher shortages, people have options, and so you need teachers, and so that's just the nature of it. That mitigation strategy is going to not continue to work, and so I'll be also asking if we need to, in that discussion, about any hard questions or hard decisions. I mean, so for instance, should we have a general funds like any of the funding items in January? Should we be approving them if it's tied to the funds where we have a deficit? Those are going to be some of those hard questions that.
Yes, those are some of the issues that we discussed.
Okay.
Looking at what's going through and see what we can, defer if we have to, or to think about most likely not opening up new programs if we know that we can't sustain them, because there's only, we're in December now, so it's really January. So that's something to look at too. Looking at the programs to see whether they open them, or whether we should just look at not funding we don't have the funds to fund some of the programs. So yeah.
Okay. Dr. Negron.
I'm looking forward to getting the recommendations that the team worked on, so that then we can come back on January 16th and give you a clear sense of what are going to be those mitigation strategies based on the recommendations that are coming from the team that huddled today.
All right, thank you very much. And that's for this year's budget. And the next item on the agenda is the overview of the FY25 budget process. Posted on the website was the budget timeline for developing the budget.
Yes.
So would you like to talk about anything
yes.
related to that?
Okay, so what we did, we're actually a little bit ahead of the game, so it gives us more time to do the work. We moved the due date up for the November 24th for the reviewing the staffing rosters. Thanks to the assistant supers who dedicated their time to sit with us and work with each of the schools. We are now at a place where we can get the rosters up to date. Now we've been working with HR as well. And I want to give a special thanks to Christine, because they got it all done today. And so, and she's met with HR. So now there are a few outstanding issues, but we will have a clean roster now. So now we can begin the real work of looking at what's in each school, and just comparing it with the principal. So we do have training this week on the budget process with the principals and the administrators. where we will be giving them the worksheets and explaining to each of them what they should be doing as far as their non-personnel costs, to make sure they review what the clean roster now, to make sure we didn't miss anybody or somebody came in, because what we did was we shut the roster down as of November the 13th, because we had to pick a date to close in order to get the work done. So if there's anybody that maybe came in afterwards that we weren't able to capture, then we give them a chance to make sure that they outline that person. So this week, again, we will be doing a training on the forms themselves. We also have a form by which they can start preparing. What are their needs? What are their concerns for next year? So we will give them that form as well on the on Wednesday's training. And then so they will have time. We will have individual budget sessions with the principals and the executive team and the superintendent. That will be on December 18th, 19th, and 20th. So we're setting up a Google Calendar now. And so based on the assistant super that's in charge for that school, we'll have a list. And then the principals will just have to sign in as to what time on that particular day they would like, that they would like to meet with us. And then we're going to set up the department head meetings, but we're going to do that after the holiday, because we don't want to, jam ourselves up. So we'll be meeting with the non-school department heads after the holiday. They don't have large budgets, because most of the budgets are site-based, with the schools. And then we'll have everything coming back on January 16th. And then we'll do internal budget revisions just on things that we still need more clarity on, and that date will be determined. So we're looking at putting a first draft together in January if everything goes well, at the end of January. And our first presentation will be the finance and operations meeting in February.
All right, thank you. Are any comments or questions related to this? All right. The only thing that I'll say is I thank you for putting the calendar together. I do think that more than one budget presentation to the public or community forums, I think, will be important this year. Mm-hmm. You have it listed as that it could be one or more. So I do think that those would be useful. And also with new administration, it's a great time to, think about the budget presentations and those materials that are put together to support the numbers, explain the numbers, and which is also why I also am requesting that we update the staffing guidelines deficit, which that project started from board member comments related to the budget. I think it was Dr. Yarborough that, it's an inspirational budget as well, not just something that's talking about what good we could do if there was adequate funding, as opposed to the keeping the lights on type budget presentations that we've also had before. So I think telling the story is always key. Anything else related to this?
No, I think that's it. And the rest of them, of course, are to be determined. So as the calendar, as dates go by, we will be saying whether, the projects are completed, and we will keep the board advised of where we are, what step we're at.
All right. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
So we'll talk about the next one. We had 2 transportation related items. We also don't have Mr. Lamb available because he's testifying, I think, at Board of Alders Finance meeting. But is there any information about the transportation contract being posted, or the clean bus rebate? If there's not, I request that we should probably, particularly for the transportation Attorney Alexiadis, I'm sorry.
Good evening, friends. I don't have a lot of specific information to share, only that I've been copied on a number of emails going back and forth between Mr. Lamb and the purchasing department in connection with with preparing the documents to be posted. So it's in process, but he can advise, he would be able to advise more specifically. So there is work. I'm only here to say there is work being done on it.
I have no doubt, but we also were, one of the things that we were trying to accomplish with the new transportation contract was to have things in place so that the alders know exactly where things are before that they are going to be considering our budget, because I think that we're going to want clarity on where things are with that contract, which is our big one, before they look favorably on any other budget requests. So I guess my suggestion is an updated timeline, maybe at the full board meeting or in the packet or something, to make sure. Or I clarified, Dr. Negron?
Yes, what we'll do similarly to the past, we'll make sure that we put a memo together so that at least you will know what is your projected date to have that posted for the public.
Okay, thank you.
I think there's another hand raised.
I don't see any other hands raised.
Or Mr. Jamar Lean, did you want to comment?
No, sir, that was a mistake. But thank you.
Mr. Wilcox?
Yes, sir.
I guess where it regards these two transportation items, part of me is thinking maybe we need a special meeting. Not that I want a special meeting, but I know that there's a timeline involved, and it's been several meetings, and we haven't received an update. And so I'm concerned that we won't have. I'm concerned that it might be something we cannot do, or we will have limited options because of the timeline. But maybe that's not the case. But I would like some official communication in terms of what is happening and what decisions need to be made, and give the board members time to actually maybe have a discussion if that's needed versus an immediate decision.
Okay, if I could just clarify, so for the transportation contract posting, that does not require board action. So are you referring to the clean bus rebate update, which might require board action as part of the application process?
So yes, for the clean bus rebate update, yes. And I don't know. I mean, I do, I think, recognize that board action is not required for the transportation contract update. But I hope we are on target, because I think there was a timeline put in place to give us some generous flexibility, or at least enough time to not be rushed and to go through the process. And if that is not the case, it will be good for us to know so we can make adjustments as a board.
Okay, so I heard from the superintendent. I'm about to, her hand's raised. I'm about to throw it to her, but she was going to have a memo that would have that information about the updated timeline. And it sounded like it was going to be in our board packets, and we do have a board meeting on Monday where people could ask questions related to the posting of the transportation contract. So that's would give us that information. As I recall from the timeline that was presented, it was, there was plenty of time in it, but the concern would be, if I remember correctly, it was a week or so ago, it was going to be posted. And so we're just an adjusting of that. So, and then also information about the clean bus rate rebate. And I think that has a hard deadline of February 1. Dr. Negron, did you want to?
Yes, so what I wanted to reiterate is that as it relates to the transportation contract and putting it all out, we did draft a timeline. The idea has always been to do this early enough, so there's plenty of opportunity for thorough discussion because upon my arrival, I heard a lot about what transpired in the past. I certainly do not want to be in that space again. That is why I insisted to the team that I wanted a timeline that would have plenty of time for discussion. We have been working to get it up. The latest information I have is that it might go up as early as tomorrow. I didn't want to say that today because I hate saying something and then having to take it back. But Dr. Yarborough, just to kind of assure you that it's moving, we're confident that it might be up tomorrow. There was a lot of things that were going back and forth, as you heard Attorney Alexiada reference, but I'm confident that it probably will be up tomorrow. As it relates to the clean bus rebate, there were additional questions that you posed, right? I tasked my team to going back and making sure that they took another look to be able to give you thorough answers to your questions. There's a memo that the team has drafted. I just have to take a look at it. And that's the one that I'm hoping that will get into the packet so that you will have it, so that then I feel confident that your questions have been answered and that we stay on track to be able to submit that application.
Perfect. Many thanks on both topics.
All right, thank you. Anything else connected to this?
That is all I have related to those 2 items.
All right, thank you very much. The final thing on our agenda just is Series 3000 policies. Nothing listed today, but there is on the draft potential discussion calendars, other policies moving forward, just so we can kind of keep that going. And I also have a to-do item here is to double check on the facilities use policy that we sent to governance, since that came up today. So that's the end of the agenda. Is there anything else? People up? Dr. Negron, your hand's up? Or...
Yes, Mr. Wilcox, I know that at one point we're also talking about a presentation that we want to bring forth, that I know FNO has been awaiting that presentation as it pertains to facilities and the analysis that was done. So I am still optimistic that I want to make sure that I have the team that did the analysis, the ones that were contracted prior to my arrival, to be able to present the findings. And at the same time, I want to be able to present some recommendations as it relates to that. So I'm hoping to be able to do that sometime in either, I'm pushing my team to be ready for January. And I know you put out the discussion items. So I'm hoping to be able to do that in January, latest February, because I think all of that has to play out into our budget process. As I think about, for example, operational effectiveness, and I see facilities as part of that.
Yeah. So I did list it just as on the draft as a potential for the first January meeting. Happy to talk about having it on the second January meeting or beyond that if need be, but
I just wanted to make sure that it was accounted for in your proposal.
Yeah, so I did list it as in the first January one, but also understanding that it could be ambitious because of the winter break. So
we're still aiming for it. So
yeah, so I think it's good to aim, and then if we need to, we'll move it. It's important things to get it done right, but it's also important to get it done. So appreciate that. Thank you very much. All right, we've reached the end of the agenda. Hearing nothing else on that item, motion to adjourn would be appreciated.
So moved.
I second that. So we'll vote. Dr. Yarborough?
Yes.
And I'm a yes as well. We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone, for a somewhat expedited meeting.
Thank you.
So, have a good one.